Good morning, Liz. How are you?
Hey, Carolyn, it's nice to see you. I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm so well. It's been a while since we've seen one another, so it's nice to see your face again.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way.
Oh, when you see your face,
No, no, especially not when I see my hair.
your hair looks fantastic.
Yeah.
No, it's nice to see you. So today we're going to talk about listen and act on your heart voice wisdom. This is the last chapter in this section. And I was wondering if we could start out by you reading just the first couple paragraphs on page 184 to 185. I thought it'd be a great way to introduce this chapter.
Yeah, you got
Great.
it.
Thank you.
Chapter 20. It's our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. Dumbledore said that in Harry Potter and Chamber of Secrets. Our heart voice is our true north. It will never steer us wrong. If there's anything in this world we can trust implicitly, it's that. Particularly if we're afraid, our heart voice will offer a response that will, without exception, lead to a better outcome than any advice we'll get from Victim Town. At one time or another, we've all been afraid of something: being laughed at, someone taking advantage of us, being wrong, being right, being ridiculed, failing, not being loved too much, what other people think, succeeding, failing, losing, winning, being noticed, being overlooked, being heard, not being heard, saying the wrong thing, being rejected, being misunderstood, being abandoned, being accepted, being weird, or showing our true personality. We're all afraid of the same things. If you want to disrupt the shitty life circle, I invite you to do whatever you're afraid of anyway. Take a chance and grow your heart voice. Do it all.
I love that. I love that. I was just thinking as you were reading that you've recorded your audiobook and it's on Audible now. And what a treat to have that experience. I'm sure there was a bit of a learning curve to learning how to read out loud for an audiobook.
Yes, yes, indeed there was. And yeah, the day one was the whole learning curve, 8 hours, well, 7 hours, I guess, of recording that I then listened to. And then I listened to what I recorded on day two. And then I had to go back and re-record everything I did on day one.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No,
Really?
and it's
Wow.
okay. It just, it takes a little while to get in the groove of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Were you being coached at the place where you had it done, or did you just
No, not really. I mean,
no.
he would, the sound technician was great. He would make some notes, or we would stop if he wanted me to do something over. Sometimes it was a glitch, a technical glitch on his end. Sometimes it was my mispronunciation, or I stumbled, or I said or those things. But I did get better at it, absolutely, as the days went on.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
full week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How awesome is it that you know the person that owns the recording studio? What a treat to be able to have a friend be part of that part of your journey with
Yeah.
you, right? Like,
It made it really special for
yeah, he's a
sure.
special guy, so I love him. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about him. Uh, okay, so I love this passage that you just read because it speaks to everybody, right? Like I was reading it this morning and I'm like, oh, I think I felt everything that you've read just this morning.
Oh wow, that's a lot swirling around at once.
I'm like,
Yeah,
let
but
the
you're
clouds
right.
flow through.
We're not alone in any of those things.
Hmm.
We all have the same fears. We all have the same voices in our head that says a lot of similar shit, right?
Yeah, yeah. So when you talk about you go on to talk about the Hardy Life Circle, which is a good chunk of this chapter. It's sort of the juxtaposition of what of when we talked about before the shit happens sort of chapter. So can we just sort of compare what happens when shit happens, what happens when shit happens, and what do we do with the shit when it happens, and how does the heart circle come into play?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We can't ever stop shit from happening, right?
Hmm.
I wish I could tell you otherwise, but that's not what life on Earth and this human experience is all about. And so
Yeah.
what we do have though is always a choice. It's a choice about how we choose to view whatever is going on or
Mhm.
whatever has happened in the past. And it's a choice about the perspective we adopt. And it's a choice about the meaning that we believe, the story that we make up in our heads. And our natural set point is going to be the one that's easiest, that's most familiar, and that's what we learned in childhood. And it takes a while to disrupt that, to form new responses, new neural pathways. And awareness is the key. So
Mm.
when we can take a minute to breathe and not act on our natural first response to it, and even to not listen to the voice in our head that is showing up right away, and because it's saying shit that we're used to hearing, it's saying shit that it learned when we were young, that honestly isn't even freaking true anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's just it's a practice and awareness game.
Yeah. I love that. As I was thinking, as you were saying that there's 8 billion people in the world almost. And so there's 8 billion ways that we all react to stress. Right. But I was thinking
Yeah.
about like, in general, if we're going to sum it up into two people, I'm going to put 8 billion people into two people. I feel like there's some people that react to stress and can sort of deal with it at the moment and sort of bury it and be like, that's the way it is. And then like, just put it, my hand's going beyond the thing. Just put it aside and just put it aside. But I react to, and that's more my husband. He will bury stuff. And so shit happens seemingly less frequent, but then it takes longer. And then when the shit hits the fan, it hits it pretty big, right? I react very, very quickly to my emotions, both high and low. Like I think I've just come to this planet this time around to experience a lot of high and low emotions quickly. And so this just really speaks to me because I'm practicing it all the effing time, it feels like. Ugh!
Yes, that's our journey is to try and become a bit better at humaning every day.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
and yes, everybody has different responses. And I would also add that you have different responses based on the resources you have available
mhm,
at that time, right?
mhm.
And every single human is doing the best they can, right? So sometimes you may not react as impulsively or as strongly, for lack of a better word, if you're well rested and you're fed and everything else in your world is under control and going well, right?
Right,
um you're feeling more patient and capable.
right.
um and some days, we didn't get any sleep, and we've got a really sore shoulder, and there's other things going on, then our reaction, our response is maybe going to be um not as aware, not as growth minded as we might have hoped, and still we were doing the best we could, right?
Right, right. And for all the women out there, I'd like to acknowledge the hormones and the hormonal
Yeah.
shifts and
Oh
fluctuations.
yeah.
Not saying that men don't get it. I remember sitting with the naturopath and she said, like, for the most part, in a month, a man's testosterone is like this, and a woman's hormones in any given moment's like this. And I'm like, yeah, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's a real
that's a big one
thing.
too. And then we're always like, there's pregnancy, then there's perimenopause, and then there's menopause. Blah, blah, blah. It
Well,
just never
there's
doesn't
a
end.
million different things
Yeah.
that factor into the resources we have available in the moment.
Right, 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 right. So the Hardy Life Circle. So shit happens is you believe the town voice, you believe the voice in your head, you try to cope, then you move into victim town. And with the heart voice, you believe the heart voice, and then your coping then switches because the voice is different that you listen to,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I love that. Can you explain, you tell a little story about being upset, being fired from a job and feeling upset about it. I wanted to sort of give the audience an example of how this looks like in your life and what happened then, and maybe what you would do now, or how you view it now, but how you would handle a situation like that now. Could do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was a really frightening and tumultuous time in my life. I was a single mom and didn't have a lot of financial resources. I mean, I was holding things back at the checkout at the grocery store, you know? So you put the stuff that you absolutely have to have on the belt first, and then you ask kindly for a subtotal, and then if you can afford, you put the rest of the things on the belt. That's where I was at. And the backstory is kind of irrelevant. But I ended up getting fired from my job,
Mhm.
and I took it so personally. I took it, first of all, as a, like, my ego, as an affront of my qualifications, as a blow to my expertise, my career worth. And that was really hard. But the bigger level was, oh my God, I have a mortgage to pay and I have two kids to support, and this is gonna be disastrous, you know? And um and it wasn't, as things turned out. I mean, the backstory was that I was off work due to work-related stress from a sexual harassment incident with the president of the company, and another coworker that was just making my life miserable. And they fired me while I was off on work-related stress. So I ended up
Mm.
getting a reasonable settlement, and with that income and that time available, I got my real estate license and launched a new career that turned out to be very lucrative and really fun, and totally, totally up my alley. I mean, there were so many positives, but it was only in hindsight, 18 months later, that I could say, wow, I'm really glad. I'm really glad I got fired, because I was looking at making a change, but I was too afraid to make the leap on
Mhm.
my own. I was too afraid to quit without having the guaranteed income to replace what I was going to lose. And that wasn't a choice once I
Mm.
got fired. And it turned out to be one of the best things that happened. And yeah, I was mad at the people there. I was mad at the woman who instigated my firing. And but 18 months later, I was grateful. I was
Wow.
grateful for
Mhm.
that, you know? And so the lesson for me was, and for anybody, is we don't know. We don't know what this is going to mean, or what new direction this is going to point us in, or what new doors are going to open because this really shitty, hard thing happened. Uh, because anything truly is possible, right?
Yeah, I
And so
love that.
all the angst and all the worry and all the stress that I literally put on myself by listening to those voices that said, you're not going to pay your mortgage, you're going to be broke, you're going to lose your house, all those terrible things, which never happened, right? And that's the other thing about a lot of those messaging and voices from victim town that try to spin us up and make us more worried and more afraid. Those what if scenarios, almost never does that shit actually happen.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then we say, oh yeah, what a colossal waste of time, all that worrying, I won't do that again.
Yeah. And then we do.
And then we do, right?
Until
And
the
then we
next time
do.
we have another lesson.
Yeah, and then, but it's like I said, it's the goal is to handle every shit happening a little bit better than the last time.
Yeah. You mentioned, you talk about judgment a little bit, and then you said, I think you said, the situation's not good or bad, it just is. It just is. Can you chat a little bit about the judgment? Because I was thinking about how part of the pain that we feel is the judgment that we make about the situation, about other people, about ourselves. And yeah, that think that gets
There's
Carolyn in trouble.
there's judgment's a huge thing. We could do hours just on judgment.
Yeah.
So with respect to judging a situation or something, an experience, something that has occurred, it's the voices in our head that are using past experiences and shitty childhood beliefs to present it as evidence of what in our past was true. And I mean, we see exactly what we look for, right? And that's a choice. Judgment is a choice. And I mean, gosh, judgment about myself and other people and everything else is something that I still work on. I work on this daily, and I'm presented with opportunities. And but with respect to situations, we don't know what it's going to mean in the future. And from a logical standpoint, then it makes sense for us to reserve judgment. And that's one of the tricks that kind of helps me set it aside for the time being. It's like, okay, let's just stay curious and see what happens next and see where this leads. And then I'll decide if it was good or bad. So for me, it's not an easier response is not to completely eliminate the judgment. It's easier for me as a first step to say, I'm just going to set it aside for now. I'm not going to judge it yet, right? That I think is more obtainable, is more manageable. And then you can just keep doing that, right? Well, I'm not going to judge it yet. No, let's just see, let's see what happens tomorrow. Let's see what tomorrow brings, right? And with not huge expectations, but with an open mind and a belief that truly anything is possible because it is. Because sometimes with whatever just happened, we never could have foreseen that or guessed that would happen. And so that is evidence that something super tremendous that we never expected or could see coming can also occur for us. We don't know.
True. I love that.
And it feels better, you know. It's not necessarily denial. It's more of a postponement of the judgment,
Postman, you're like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. We'll see. I
right?
love
But for
that. I
right
love that.
now, it is, and it's such a cliche and overused phrase, and it is what it is. You can't change something that's already occurred.
Yeah.
And to attach a meaning to it that makes us feel unworthy or incapable or less than or hopeless, despondent, that's not going to serve or help the situation in any way whatsoever. Right? So the choice that feels better is the one that our heart voice will reiterate, and that's, let's see where it goes. This could turn out to be the best thing that ever happened, because it could.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. So, and you talk about now sight versus hindsight, which you sort of basically touched on to some extent, that we don't really know. We don't really know what will happen.
Yeah. So the now sight is just being in the moment with what's happening right here, right now. And right here, right now, though I'm not losing my house. My mortgage is payment is current right here today, you know?
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes.
It's such a practice. It really is a practice. I think this is one of the biggest things that I've noticed is just the responsibility that it is on us for taking every thought, being responsible for every thought. And I also want to point out that we're receivers of thought as well. We can generate thought, but we receive thought. And sometimes I think we don't realize that we're receiving thought of collective consciousness or whoever you're with, that kind of thing. We really are just unconsciously receiving that thought, but we can feel those thoughts that come through. And so I love what you say. It's just actually a reminder of me. I hadn't thought of this morning, of when you're allowing thoughts to come to you or whatever, to put it aside, put the thoughts that are not useful aside. That's a practice. And it's a
Yeah.
freaking hard practice sometimes when
Yeah.
you're feeling it in the moment. I don't know if the audience can pick up, but I am feeling it today a little bit. I to disclosure, I did ask Liz asked me when we jumped on the call at first, how are you? Da da da. And I'm like, we got to talk afterwards. I don't want to talk right now because I might cry. And because I love Liz, and Liz is a dear friend to me. And I know that I'll just like have a little release. And I try not to do this with the audience, but I'm feeling it and going through it myself today with being reminded that it is my responsibility to put that thought aside for now. Nobody's going to do it for me. So if
No.
that thought stays, a thought that's not useful to me stays, and I start ruminating on it, then that's what I'm going to attract into my life, right? Like I will just, because like you, as you said, what you believe, you see evidence of. It's just the way it is. So I so appreciate that reminder of putting it aside. And then my reminder of like, it's a practice. And you said this too. You said like, I'm not perfect at this. And I think that I was thinking about this morning, that this is one of the misnomers of people in this world. Like, let's say like a Mel Robbins, Brene Brown, that they're perfect, that they have it all together. I mean, Mel does enough Instagram posts and stuff that we know that she doesn't have it together. And sometimes she has to slither out of bed. I've seen her slither out of bed.
Yes,
Right?
yes. And I've heard Brene be very humble and vulnerable about things that she also is still working on and figuring out. And that's the human experience. And no human is exempt from that. And we're all on our own individual, very unique journeys. And
Mhm.
comparison is not helpful at
Mhm.
all, in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And, a reminder, because, um, people may look to you as, oh, Liz has got her stuff together. Oh, Liz, and then if you have a moment where you have fallen in the grace of somebody else's eyes, oh, how could she do that? Blah, blah, blah. But Liz is just Liz, and you're going to have your
Well, and
moments and you're working through it. And your book is your guidebook as well. This is the story of you. So
yeah.
of course you're going to be using those tools and that kind of thing and other things to help you along the way, right? And that's what I love, that the authors are just people too, just like our teachers in
Every
elementary school.
everybody is just the same human. And yeah, we're all doing our best. And what worked for me may not be what works for someone else. So my messaging too is for people to stay open and curious and feel their way through trying different things that produce helpful results for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to discuss every single little thing in your book because I want there to be some surprise for people. You do mention about the choice point, and we have really discussed it, catching it, holding on to the pause and using the pause. Do you want to touch on that, because it's such sage advice?
Thank you. It's something that I use daily, and what helps me catch that pause when shit happens and we want to instantly react, respond, is just taking a couple breaths, taking a couple
Mm.
deep breaths, and just taking a minute, right? And if you need to remove yourself from the situation in order to do that, if you're feeling pressured to respond or take action, there are just you could just I'll be back in a sec. Just give me a minute. And that's also a helpful tool. Um, Another one that I sometimes use when I don't want to go where the voice in my head is going, and sometimes it's for when I get really frustrated or really angry, I will say to myself, "Oh, isn't that interesting? That's really interesting. Why am I, why did I react like this? Why am I feeling just instantly, like someone gets under your skin or they say something and you just, "Urgh." um, and you want to figure out what's behind that, because when those reactions are that strong or that quick, there's something there. And to help coax it out, or for me to see it, that's how I usually start, is just by saying, "Oh, wow, that was weird. That was a weird reaction. That's really interesting. I wonder why." I don't always get to the bottom of it. Sometimes, days will go by and I might make that connection. I'm starting to make more of those connections now. Um, but that's something that's still hard for me, is to delve down and get to that underlying piece of that reaction.
Right.
So viewing it with curiosity is kind of a first step, and then I try to give it some love and some grace and not beat myself up for my reaction, um, especially if it's resulted in me saying something, kind of snarky back to somebody, or rude. Uh, uh, to, apologize if that's what I did. And I'm not saying that's a go-to thing, but it does happen from time to time. Uh, and to give some compassion to myself and some love for that reaction, and to set the intention to figure that out, so that it doesn't happen again, you know?
Or if it does happen again, that you move through it more quickly,
Exactly. That I handle
right?
it a little bit better, that I pause for 2 seconds before I say,
Yeah. Yeah.
eat shit.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause I love the definition of growth, that like that it's not that the situation is not going to happen again. It's that you can move through it more quickly, more easily. And then you can look back and go, oh my goodness, I did do that a little bit. I was more quick. I caught myself, faster. I was gentler with myself.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
growth. That's to
That's
be
growth.
that can be celebrated.
That's
Yeah.
growth. Well, this is a good place to end. I wrote down a quote. You said, it's important to appreciate the value of being gentle with ourselves through this process. And I think that's just a perfect
Mm,
quote to end on, right? Because, as you say, sending yourself love really is the biggest thing. And other people love too. Really first line of defense is actually sending love. Sounds like you're 5 years old, but it actually is the way of things. So
it is.
yeah.
That's what makes the world a better place.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much for meeting with me today, Liz, and chatting
Thank you,
about this. I really, really appreciate
Carolyn.
it. Good chapter. Good chapter.
Good
I'll see
chapter.
you again next week.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye for
bye.
now.
Bye.